What is the relevance of Child Protection Week? How can parents help their children to speak out about cases of abuse without any fear? Are both genders equally recognized under child protection programs? And are the police doing enough to protect children of South Africa? What time is it? It's question time. And welcome to the show. My name is Mbalula. Child Protection Week ended yesterday with latest statistics relating to abuse and violence against children not painting a good picture. The Department of Social Development says 1 in 5 children in South Africa fall victim to physical, sexual or emotional abuse before the age of 18. For its part, the United Nations states that the country has the highest rate of baby killings in the world. While the campaign is led by the Minister of Social Development, its officials say it is incumbent on all South Africans to play a role in protecting children and creating a safe and secure environment for them. Both President Zuma and Police Minister Fikile Mbalula recently condemned the abuse and violence against women and children and promised harsher sentences against perpetrators. The theme for this year's Child Protection Week was "Let us all protect children to move South Africa forward." We are live, and if you can call us, and there you've used the numbers to dial us 089-110-4210, our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. My guest, Bongani Makubo, Child Protection Manager at Save the Children South Africa. And joining us from our Durban studios is Sindis Kakani, Childline Social Worker. But before we get into the discussion, let's have a look at what President Jacob Zuma had to say about the spate of killings.
We need to unite as communities and all sectors, from business, traditional leaders, faith-based communities, and others, to promote safer communities.
Was President Jacob Zuma there talking about the safety of children and women in the country. But what does this Child Protection Week mean to children who suffer from abuse when, in fact, there are new cases every day that are being reported about the abuse and killings of children? But Bon, let me welcome you. I hope Cindy will be able to talk to us as well in a short while. But really, Child Protection Week for what when children are just being killed like this?
Good evening to you, Mpo, and good evening to the viewers at home. Child Protection Week basically was started to basically remind people of the rights of the children. But the unfortunate part is that we take it as a 7-week type of a campaign instead of us internalizing it and making it as something that we actually advocate for 365 days. So the challenge that we're facing is that during the week of Child Protection Week, we go out there, we make all the noise, and yet after the last day of Child Protection Week, the closing ceremony, we forget once more. We forget that we all have a responsibility of reporting in terms of child protection issues in our communities. And that's why we find ourselves in the very same situation over and over again. So I think that's why it's critical for us, therefore, to play a role as individuals in our own communities, to capacitate the very little children, and also, to establish those relationships where children are comfortable enough to report to us as parents, to report to us as neighbors, as families, to say, this is what is happening to me at school, at home, and therefore I need assistance in this. So the challenge that we're facing now is that, children are basically really, really suffering because the parents themselves are not capacitated enough to really know what it is to be a parent to a child. Because we find ourselves in a situation...
No, but I don't agree with you. What do you mean parents are not capacitated enough to know how what it means to be a parent? I mean, we were kids ourselves. Yeah. I know what I don't want, which I went through as a child. So why would I subject my kids to that type of treatment? I mean, here you have a case here of a child who was killed by the mother's, by daddy, so to say. The mother says, you know what, I trust this man with my life. I trust this man. This is his child. But it is the same person who's killing the child.
That is so true. We do have parents. The reason why is that the parents that are not capacitated. We have a situation now where children are having children. And those, parents themselves, are not ready to become parents. In a situation where, we have parents that, get to meet this boyfriend, they love this boyfriend, and you find that they love the boyfriend more than they love the child themselves. And the reason why is because they're economically dependent in some situation. They would rather sacrifice the child than really, look into, identify what is really happening in this situation and, coming into a solution of helping the child and really be satisfied with the situation itself. But we find ourselves, with parents that are relying more on their partners for financial issues, for financial, capacity and for all the other reasons, and end up neglecting their children.
Cindy, let me bring you in here. The safety of children in South Africa, would you say the police and the Department of Social Development are doing enough to protect these kids? Can Cindy hear me? Cindy, are you able to hear me? Okay, it doesn't seem like Cindy can hear me.
Yes, but it's very soft.
Okay, now saying the safety of children in South Africa, would you say that the Department of Social Development and the police are doing enough to protect the children?
Okay, good afternoon. The Department of Social Development is doing their best, I believe, in protecting children, because they've got this program that we are speaking about this week, which is the Child Protection Week, whereby they go out into the communities to make people aware of the child protection issues around our communities. And the police are also doing fairly enough, I would say. Most of the time, the police would rely on the communities to report cases of abuse, and if a person knows that a case has happened in their community, the police most of the time will rely on the communities to come forward and report such cases. And when the investigations are continuing, also they still rely on the communities to come forward and say that I know a case has happened and a child was abused, maybe by so-and-so, if that information is available, and give that information forward. Because at the end of the day, most people say, no, because it doesn't happen in my home, so it's not my problem. But we need to work with the police and Department of Social Development in fighting child abuse.
Witness, you are in Limpopo. Welcome.
Hi, Mpo, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call. How are you?
I'm fine, man.
Yes.
Yeah, let me start by condemning the high rate of child abuse which is happening in our country.
Yes.
You see, there is a saying which says it takes the whole community to raise a child.
Yes.
I agree with my sister there that child protection is the responsibility of everyone. Most importantly, the community members who live with these children, who witness this abuse happening. It is the responsibility of everyone to report the cases of child abuse to authorities. And we need to ensure that children are protected at all times. In my experience, I'm a social worker myself for social development.
Yeah.
It is true said that in most cases which we deal with of child abuse, you will find out that the perpetrators are those who are responsible, who are actually supposed to be protecting the children.
Yes.
Most importantly, the parents or someone closer to the children. And
yes.
we need to condemn such things because we need to protect the children at all times.
Witness, thank you very much for that call. It takes a community to raise a child, yet when you try to intervene, you are told and in other instances, children are encouraged not to speak about the abuse that they are experiencing in the family setup, because ihlazo.
You're right there. The situation that we basically likely to hear and find out about in rural areas is that in most, families, traditional leaders, are still the ones who are basically still pushing the agenda of child protection issues still being kept within the community. And the reason for that, I don't think that they have enough information in terms of the outcomes, the later outcomes on the child themselves. They're more focused on what is really happening currently in terms of the child, protecting the family, protecting the perpetrator, but not focusing necessarily on the child. So the best interests of the child, in this case, are forgotten. And that's why we need to remind people of that. And that basically is emphasized in the Children's Act, to say in every situation when we work with a child, we need to focus on protecting the child rather than focusing on protecting the individual, the adult person.
Mucheri, you are in Pretoria. Welcome.
When you're guested. It can't be business as usual where young people are being killed every day. And the police are trying to arrest, but the courts where some of these people you find that they are out on what do you call?
On bail.
On bail.
Yeah.
And they continue to kill these young people. We cannot continue like this. Also, the society, because most of these people who are killing these young ones, they are family members. What are we doing as a society? Because everybody needs to play a role. It can't be only the issue of social workers and police. Also, the society, we are to blame in these issues, because we know of these people who are committing these heinous crimes. It can't be business as usual. We need to stand up and say enough is enough.
Okay, Mucheri, thank you very much. I think we need to take a quick break here. And when we return, we'll be definitely continuing with our discussion. 089-1104-210. 089-1104-210 is the number to dial. Our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. We're talking about Child Protection Week.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today, Bongani Khumalo, is the Child Protection Manager at Save the Children South Africa. And joining us from Durban is Cindy Skakane, Child Line Social Worker. I hope Cindy can hear us better now. Cindy, can you hear us better now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Now, I want to challenge you, both of you, that the safety of children, and I'll give you a typical example of what I'm subjected to every day of my life. Whenever I drive, whether to work or wherever, there are people who are standing by the traffic lights with children. What are you doing to ensure that, one, either those parents are removed from those streets, two, those children are removed from the care of those parents who are subjecting them and basically using them as as a bait for us as motorists to feel bad, bad about them and donate whatever it is that we're able to donate. I am worried about the safety of those children. What are you doing? And are you only worried about South African children because most of them are Zimbabwean?
Right. For the parents or older people that are begging on the streets with children, again, the community will need to report those cases because sometimes you would miss because, for example, in Durban alone, there's so many people that are doing that at every street corner and almost every robot in Durban. People are doing that with children. So what we need is that people to report these cases because we may not really see all of them. So people really need to report these cases. And what will happen then in protecting those children, when a case like that is found, we will then find a place of safety for the child, for the safety of the child, as well as take the, if the parent maybe does not have a place to stay, maybe it's an abused woman, and then there are shelters for abused women. So the woman will go to that shelter and with the child as well. So the child will also be protected. And the parent will be, you know, taken into, they will teach them skills of how to develop themselves. At the end of the day, they need to go out of that shelter to be able to make a living for themselves. Okay. And the children will be taken to school as well. So it comes back again to working together with the government, working together with communities, working together with NGOs that are working with children to report these cases, because there are resources available. As I'm saying, there's shelters for women, and children can be taken in places of safety for their own safety. All right, Peter, you are calling us from around Gauteng here. Welcome.
Good evening, Umpa.
Welcome, Daddy.
You're looking very smart this evening.
Oh, thanks, Peter.
Mr. Umpa.
Yeah.
Our president is the biggest abuser of them all. What kind of example is he setting for the people in this country? The more you tell people not to do things, the more they are doing it.
So you think the problem is starting with the head?
It's starting right at the top. The big guys in this country are not setting an example for any of us, for anyone else. The big guys are getting away with it. So what does that say to everybody else? You can abuse children. You can abuse your wife. You're going to get away with it. So why not? Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Peter, for that call. Well, I think I still want to pose this challenge to you. What are you doing for these kids that I'm seeing and these children that I'm seeing at the robots?
Okay. We're seeing a new trend now with children, you know, leaving their countries, crossing borders into South Africa due to a number of factors. You know, it can be push factors because of the economy in their own country. Yeah. And it could be, you know, because of, you know, believing that South Africa offers greater opportunities. And a lot of these children are basically unaccompanied and they separate from their parents in search of better opportunities.
Fine, I hear that. But I'm talking about the ones that I see with mothers.
Okay, you will find that in most cases, you know, with the brief, you know, preliminary research that we've done, a lot of those, you know, with mothers are not their children. Basically, they use those, you know, just to scout and get more money from the, you know, people that will be feeling pity for them. But a lot of children that we work with are children that would be basically, you know, traveling on their own, moving from one country to another.
So why don't you get those kids removed from the care of those parents?
They do get removed. We don't offer face-to-face services that save the children, but we do work with the broader, you know, child protection systems such as other civil society organizations, the Department of Social Development, through their department, the International Social Services, where they're able to basically, you know, remove those children from the, you know, from the streets and place them in shelters where they'll be well taken care of until the parents are traced.
Okay, I just want to ask my director to bring back some of the slides that we were seeing earlier there with statistics of how rife this problem of child abuse is in, you know, not just in South Africa, but all over the world, because it's not like South Africa is the West, you know. Even before this one, there was one. This one is talking specifically about sexual violence against children. Girls experience sexual violence worldwide, 150 million. Boys experiencing sexual violence, 73 million, all over the world. And I mean, it is not exaggerated. This is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and you might find that the stats themselves are basically have been, you know, based on underreporting, because boys, for instance, in some cases are not given a platform to report cases of violence. If they had to go to a police station, for instance, they are laughed at to say, why would you say another man, you know, slept with you? You know, what type of situation, you know, would you... So they end up basically living without reporting, and because they are, you know, the shame, they're ashamed of the situation, and they'd rather keep it within themselves. And that's why, based on the research that we've done, we found that, you know, boys are likely to suffer depression, more particularly if they've experienced sexual violence.
Okay, let me just talk to Cindy about this. Cindy, 40 million children are abused each year, and well, that slide is gone. Actually, I'm going to ask for it to be brought back because I'm reading from that. Yeah, thank you. And 1.8 million children are involved in prostitution and pornography, whilst 1.2 million other children are victims of trafficking. These stats are shocking, Cindy.
It's gone. Nothing on my ear.
Okay, we seem to have problems with Cindy. I don't know if she had my question there, but anyway, I don't think she did. But that's fine. Let me just say, it would therefore mean, and I'm not trying to say as South Africans we need to feel better, but it means the problem is international.
Not really. Not really. As South African, we should also be playing a role. It's not just an international problem. The problem starts within the home, because the child basically, you know, as an individual is raised within the home and the community and the broader system. So we can have policies that are in place, but if each and every one of us does not take a role and say enough is enough, I'm going to take a responsibility of protecting at least one child in my own corner, in my own pocket-sized corner today, I'm going to play a role. Therefore, we wouldn't be having this situation.
But it is institutions like yours that are failing these kids. And I'm happy that you're saying it's not just a South African issue. Because even though you know, you're saying you don't have face-to-face contacts and all that, you are not saving these kids who are walking from Zimbabwe into Limpopo to work at the farms for abusive salaries.
We are actually doing something around that. Obviously, as an organization, you know, alone, we cannot, you know, simply save the world in one day. And that's why we're working with other civil society organizations, communities around Limpopo, communities in Mozambique, you know, to basically try and educate them about this, you know, phenomenon of children moving from one place to another. At the same time, we're also ensuring that these children are safe in their travel, you know, from one country to the next, because you cannot necessarily stop them. The country, like I said before, you know, it's pull factors and it's also push factors. So the country itself also, you know, for instance, Mozambique needs to work, you know, on ways, you know, in which to basically retain, you know, children from moving. But also South Africa needs to develop ways of ensuring that these children, once they've traveled, you know, to South Africa, they are safe. They are not sexually exploited. They are not, you know, they do not find themselves being.
They are exploited by Maguma Guma even before they land into South Africa.
Yeah, in most cases they're exploited because for them, you know, they're in search of better opportunities. And at that instance, you know, they don't have protection from any adult person. And they're also not capacitated to know, you know, who's the person to rely on who's not to rely on. They don't even know, you know, how to differentiate between a person of authority and a person of just, you know, who's going to, you know, abuse them, for instance, you know, perpetrators.
So how can I help?
It's very simple. You start within your own home. You develop that, you know, relationship with your own child, for instance. You know, in most cases we find that children, you know, sit with this pain of being abused, you know, for 20, 30 years because that platform, you know, that child-friendly platform was never created at home. And only later, 30 years later, they start reporting on this issue to say, I was abused. And in some cases, you find that the very same child who was abused, later as an adult, you know, he becomes the perpetrator of the very same violence. You know, so in this instance, it's very important. I believe that you're a parent. Therefore, you should start within your own home before going outside. You know, we're saying that the other day that, you know, corporates, for instance, need to play a role to ensure that those people who are distributing, you know, child pornography using, for instance, their credit cards and all of should be blocked. We should be able to have a system that detects such incidences and, you know, deal with it accordingly. So basically, it's not just the responsibility of social development. It's not the responsibility of Save the Children as a civil society organization, but it's the responsibility of the community, the police. And that's why we always say, you know, the community should not take matters into their own hands, but rather we should develop that coordinated system that will allow us, you know, allow children, you know, as, you know, people that basically are affected the most, you know, to be able to report such incidences of violence.
Thank you very much for the time, and we thank Cindy as well. Our apologies really that the lines were disappointing us, technological challenges, I guess. But that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, I be hot.
Orange River